So one of the most expensive mistakes that people make in the hobby is they think I'm just going to buy the best players. And yes, you do want to buy the best players at specific times, but there's so much more that goes into a player's card market, rising, having value, having attention, having demand, than just them being a good player. Because if that was the case, anybody that has good performances and good stats would have a good card market, but we know that that's not the case. And that's why there's so many other variables that go into it, like their current market, like their legacy, like the card design. So what I'm going to do today is show you these 5 different tiers, or what I call archetypes, that I segment players into so that I already have an understanding of what are the pros behind this sort of player, what are the cons behind this sort of player, what's the risk involved, and what is it that I'm watching that needs to happen in order for their card market to rise, if it's going to rise at all. And we'll also talk about liquidity for these different tiers and more. Okay, so every single player goes into one of these 5 tiers. 2 of these have really good profit margins, and I'm going to show you exactly what those are. Oh, and if you're watching this because you've watched one of the previous videos, then yes, this is the video where I'm going to hand you my actual NBA offseason buy list. It's at the end, and it'll make a lot more sense once you've seen these different archetypes, because you'll then be able to understand why specific players are where they are. And if you're new here, you've missed nothing, so let's dive in. So the first thing that I need to tattoo on your brain is understanding that a player's tier is not a representation of how good they are as a player. Because I've shared some of this on social media before, and one of the biggest things that makes people get their panties in a bunch is they're like, Jamal Murray isn't an elite player. Why is he elite? But Luka and Ant and Cade are just superstars. Like, it doesn't make sense. And yeah, if you look at it through the frame of reference of these are Hall of Fame players, these are elite players, these are superstar players, these are breakout players, and these are prospect players, and you just take it through their performance and their potential, then it won't make sense. But this isn't about their performance and ranking them as players. This is about their card markets and their market dynamics. So as I'll explain to you when we get there, the reason that Jamal Murray is in elite is because he has some kind of legacy already formed. He's won a championship, so we need to factor that in. Where the likes of Luka and Ant and Cade and Halliburton and Maxey, they haven't yet. So they're still in that superstar level, because in order for them to get to the elite level, the difference is that there's some form of legacy, championship, MVP, award, something like that. So that separation is there so that I can easily go, hey, Jamal Murray already has legacy baked in. His market isn't going to move that much if Denver do win another championship. He's not going to get MVP. He's already an all-star. Where the likes of those guys in the superstar tier, oh, there's a big jump coming that we can look to buy into and exit into, because they are big market movers. Okay, so I need to get that out of the way, because the tier measures one thing, and that one thing is what's the story of the player's market and how much is already priced into it. Okay, so if someone's in the Hall of Fame, it means that their story finished years ago and there's not that much that's going to come along to move it again. But a prospect means that their story hasn't really even started yet. So I want you, as we go through this video, to start thinking about that. We're looking at the player's card market dynamics, not who the player is and what their performance is like. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through these top to bottom, and I want you to watch one number. Not the price of these players, but the potential gap that exists as they ascend to the next level. Okay, so here we go. This is tier 1. This is Hall of Fame. And what I mean here is that they're on the Hall of Fame track. It's not that they've retired, because we're already thinking now, Russell Westbrook just announced his retirement, Kyle Lowry's announced his retirement, Chris Paul's been retired, we're looking at LeBron potentially getting here. Like, right now, these are non-active players who are in the Hall of Fame, so they have that legacy event baked in. But we're then also starting to think these elite players that are getting towards the end of their career, well, there's going to be a Hall of Fame catalyst come up for them. So anybody that's retired but hasn't yet had Hall of Fame attached to them because they're not eligible yet, because there's a few years after, they're going to live in this basket. Okay? These guys have the most stable markets that there are out of all of the different tiers. The likes of Melo, the likes of Dirk, the likes of Garnett, the likes of Paul Pierce, MJ, Kobe, these guys have established markets that aren't going to move much, because there's nothing in the narrative that's going to cause them to drop. And what happens is that when the market eventually shifts in the future and capital dries up, that capital goes somewhere and it tends to go into these sure things. And those sure things tend to be these guys where their narratives are played out, their legacies are played out, they have huge collector bases because of what they achieved in their careers and the teams that they played on. It starts to go here, and it starts to go into the current active players that are in the elite territory. So here, demand is never going to leave. It's not as if some people are never going to want Kobe's. It's not as if some people are never going to want Jordans. It's not as if some people are never going to want Paul Pierce's. Like, these people and these players have their markets established. So these are quote unquote safe bets. But a layer on top of this when we get into buying is that not every card design is the right buy. Like, you don't just want to buy a Jordan because it's a Jordan. You want it to be the right kind of card. So because these guys aren't active anymore, set and card design come into it even more, because there are some sets, some card designs that we know the market already values. So we focus more on those cards than other new cards that are coming out. Okay, these guys also tend to be one of the top 2 easiest sales because of that fact that their baselines are established and their markets are established and they're liquid and they always have demand. Okay, and oftentimes, personally, when I get into like a Kobe market or an MJ market or a Dirk market, they're cards that I have a longer term play on, unless something comes up where somebody offers me a great buying price on it and it's a really nice profit. But when I'm buying into Hall of Fame and putting players into those tiers, I'm thinking more long term, because there's not a short term exit catalyst that's coming up for them like there are for the active players. Okay, the cons here, these guys tend to be the most expensive, and for good reason. The upside on them is capped, because again, there's nothing in the market that's going to cause them to go up. And because of that, capital can sit still for years. But when you're buying into these guys, you're buying into the quote unquote blue chip investments that aren't the active players anymore. So when I'm honest with you about this, this makes up 10% tops of what I am buying into for Rookie Heat AU because of that lack of price movement. We are seeing Jordan, Kobe, and I'm going to throw LeBron in here because in the next 5-10 years, once he gets inducted, he's going to be in this conversation. We're seeing their markets move at the moment because there's lots of demand into those cards, which is a sign of the quote unquote health of the industry right now. It's just showing us that when people come in, the players that they want are the guys who are the top 5-10 in the entire sport. Now watch what happens when the market stops being so short. Okay, now we get into tier 2, the elite tier. So as I've got here, these are current day players that already have legacy baked into their market. So they've won championships, they've won MVP awards, they've won other awards, they're multiple time All-Stars, potentially, first team All-NBA, those sorts of players. That's the separation here between elite and superstar, and it has to happen because the fact that a superstar doesn't have those things mean that when and if they do happen, there's a massive increase. Where for these elite players, let's just say that SGA or Jokic wins another championship, it's not going to cause a mass spike in their pricing. It will bring a lot of volume in and prices will jump a little bit, but it's more solidifying their legacy and really setting the baseline even more. It's like saying that for this player, it isn't just a one-off. Okay, this is a player that has a strong legacy formed for who they were in the league and what it was that they accomplished. So because of all of those things, the markets of these players tend to fluctuate less and they have less immediate and short-term upside than the superstar players that don't have those legacy events yet. So as I said in here, I've got Jokic, won a championship MVP. Giannis, championship MVP. Curry, championship MVP. Durant, championships, MVPs. LeBron, championships, MVPs. And as I said in here, I'm going to throw Jamal Murray. I'm going to throw Michael Porter Jr. Like any player that's won a championship. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to buy into them. It just means that they're in this tier. So if I were to look to buy into them, I'm factoring in the events that have already happened for them and then putting that on the table so that I can go, oh, so if Denver win another championship, Jamal Murray might not be as good of a buy because it's going to be his second. Okay, it's not the first one. So what happened with the first one? What was the increase there? Because that might happen again and it might not. Like they're just the things that I'm thinking about, and that's how I separate those two different tiers of players inside my own head. So it's easy for me to see exit catalysts that are coming up and what that's going to do to that player's market. So the pros here, track record removes all the risk of them busting. There's not going to be much drop in these guys' markets. It's always going to happen because of that ebb and flow and that natural rhythm. But these guys aren't going to go to zero and they're not going to see massive crashes. They are super liquid and in demand, so they're great buys there. These are the fastest movers for ourselves. Like these are the fastest to sell cards because of that liquidity and that demand, because there is also a deep buyer pool across the different card tiers here of these players. And what I mean by that is the set design. So this is the likes of the lower tier sets like Donruss, like Select, like NBA Hoops, through the mid tier, your Optics, your Origins, your Prisms, your Obsidians, your Noirs, and into your high and your premium tiers like your National Treasures and that. Like the buyer pool is there for all of those players because people have different entry prices. The set dictates the entry price, But if they want a Jokic rookie and they don't have much to spend, then they'll go for a lower tier one of those, the same for Curry and so on. The con is that little short-term movement when a new legacy event happens. So if LeBron wins another championship this year with the 76ers, we're going to see movement in his market because of who he is as a player. If it happens to Giannis, again, we'll see some movement. Steph will see some movement. Jokic will see some movement. KD will see some movement. But the reason for that is because of the expectation of them actually achieving it. Nobody's expecting Denver to come out and win another chip right now. Nobody's expecting Giannis to go there and win it. Nobody's expecting Curry and the Warriors to win it. So if they did, we're going to see a larger bump because, oh my God, that blew us away. But it's not going to be what it was all of those years ago. So there will still be an increase, but it may not be what we'd expect it to be. It's just going to be something small, and it's going to be an exit catalyst event that reprices the market and brings more demand in. Con is that these guys have higher floor prices to enter their markets because of what they've accomplished and who they are. And the ROI on these guys tends to really happen on that Hall of Fame announcement. So that's when we'll see big moves in these guys' markets, is in the future when they do get announced into the Hall of Fame. We'll see more attention come in. We'll see that sentiment come in and that nostalgia and, oh, I remember who they were as a player, and people will then want a piece of it. And if we go one more archetype down, that gap gets even wider. Third tier, our superstars. So as I said, these are the top players in the league who are yet to win a championship or win an MVP. They don't have that legacy event attached to their market yet. It's not priced in. So Ant, Luka, Cade, Hallie, Maxey, those sorts of guys who have made the All-Star teams a couple of times now. They've made Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, or they've made appearances to the finals, or they've just been in the playoffs and they're around there. And they're a top player. They live here. Okay, that's the segment between superstar and breakout. For a breakout player to enter the superstar level, in my mind, they've got to be an all-star. Okay, it's as simple as that. So here, the pro is that there's massive increase if legacy events happen for them. If Luka goes out and wins an MVP this season, hell, same for Cade, same for Ant, same for Maxey, there's going to be a big increase in their market. It's going to reprice to say, hey, this player is an MVP. Same thing for a championship. These top 1, 2 to 3 players on those championship winning teams are the ones that see the biggest repricing. Okay? Another pro here is that playoff runs create fast tradable spikes. We've seen it happen so many times in history when these top players make the playoffs, they make the postseason, they perform well because there's other teams that are now out of it and everybody's attention is focused just on those games. That's where demand and value come from. And there is a real chance of these players climbing into the elite tier above. Okay? Cons here is that these guys are volatile because the legacy event isn't priced in yet. Sentiment swings with their performances on court, with their individual player narrative, with their team narrative, with their media presence, with the standings. Like all of those things go into it. If Luka and the Lakers have a rough start to the season, we'll see volatility in his market. It's not going to drop, but it might not rise as much as what we expected it to. Same with Ant in Minnesota. Now LaMelo's there. If the performances don't meet the expectations, we might not see his market rise as much as what we normally do early season, which could present good buying opportunities. Same for Cade. You know, East is a lot more competitive. Pistons finished first last year. So we might see some volatility at the beginning where we expect it to rise in the preseason hype and early season, but it might not happen for them. You know? The hype premium is often already baked in here because they are great players. That is already baked into their market. And this tier often needs active management because of the volatility that's involved. Okay, we need to be watching here, but personally, when I'm buying into Luka or I'm buying into Ant, I'm buying in long-term for one of these legacy events to happen. And if there's a short-term spike along the way where the profit margin looks good, then I exit. Like, I'm not concerned if these guys drop because I know that that drop is going to rebound. That's the type of play that they are. That's the market that they have. Then we have our breakout guys. So these guys are less than 25 years old. They haven't made an all-star yet. That's the key. Okay, that's what separates the breakouts from the superstars, is that these guys are breaking out and becoming superstar players who are in highlight reels, who are all over the media, who are in all-star conversations, or they might have just been an all-star and now they've become a second one. But if that happens, we're not going to see the same price increase that we did last year. So here we're looking at Armin, we're looking at Matas, we're looking at Stefan, Flag, Con, those guys who are on the breakout and on the verge of this season, next season, making the all-star teams and solidifying themselves as an elite young player in the league. So these guys have the largest short-term percentage increases and moves available. Okay, if we buy before the breakout really happens, that is a huge profit margin win for us. Okay, they're also cheap enough right now to build real position sizes in. Okay, maybe not on the premium or the high tier cards, but lots of mid-tier cards can create a really good position in these sorts of players so that when that breakout does happen, we have those assets there that we can then look to exit in. Okay? And the other pro here is that you get in before the mainstream buyer does. This tier was my most profitable and the best-selling cards last season. This is where Jalen Johnson was for us. This is where Denny Avdia was for us. This is where Jalen Duran was for us. And this is where, until he got injured, Keontae George was for us. So those guys were breaking out, but they hadn't yet. But the breakout point was them being called and being selected into the All-Star games. Okay, that repriced their markets to include that in. So it's saying that these guys are now at an All-Star level. So I'm looking for those same players, which are the ones that I have here, who are in the area of that happening again this season. Okay, so we're looking for the same player archetypes of Denny, JJ, Duran last season, of who's that going to be this season. Okay, so as I've got here, this is the last thing that I want to say on this before we get into the cons, is that the momentum here is the asset, but momentum is also the thing that decays. So if these players don't have good seasons, we're going to see their markets cool because there's nothing built into it yet to really create the stability in the baseline. But if they have great seasons and the momentum builds, then we're going to see it rise and the baseline will be set higher. Okay. The con here, regression is the norm, not the exception. These guys are going to be volatile because it's around their narrative and their performances on the court. A lot of the market sentiment comes in, and if, unfortunately, if they're not playing well, then demand and attention isn't going to be there, which causes the card market to drop and cool. But even if they do perform well, and even if the narrative is there, we may not see the increase straight away. Okay, there has to be something in the market narrative and just in the zeitgeist for everybody to jump on board and for that tipping point to be reached where the mass attention comes in. Okay, the other thing with these guys is that their windows, when you do look to exit, if there's not more than one leg to stand on, they close in days to weeks, not seasons. So if the all-star conversation doesn't come for these guys, there might be a 2-week period and a 2-week window where their markets are really up, and that's when we need to look to exit. Okay. And the final con, small positions are needed because they are hard to exit once the heat fades. So once that window's closed, if the all-star conversation doesn't happen, attention will drift out of them very quickly and we'll go into our superstars, into our elites, our Hall of Fame, or even our prospects who are starting to show signs of potential. So this is our final tier. This is where the highest risk, highest upside guys go. It's the unproven talent that's bought on projection alone. So we're really looking at team narrative here. We're really looking at individual player narrative. We're looking at market sentiment and what are people saying about this player. So this one needs you to be on top of it and have your finger on the pulse all the time. Okay, so in here I've got some rookies from last season that are still prospects. So Derek Queen, Cedric Coward, Maxime Reynaud, Jeremiah Fears, Trey Johnson III. And then this year we've got Boozer, DeBanza, Peterson, Caleb Wilson, Acuff Jr. And any of those top 10 guys. I throw Lenderborg in here. The reason we've got last season's and this season's is there's always a carryover into the sophomore season. So I'd put VJ, I'd put Harper into breakouts because they proved themselves last season, where the likes of Queen, Coward, Fears, Trey Johnson, they showed potential, but they didn't really make the jump. So right now they're still prospects until they can start to put some things together. And now, okay, they're a potential breakout candidate that we're going to watch. So the good thing here, these guys have the lowest entry costs, they have the largest potential returns. They're highly liquid if the performance and the narratives are there around them. If they're starting to do things that are unexpected or exceeding expectations, that's where people will start to come into it, and there will be a big buyer pool because people want to buy the hope that one of these guys just takes off. They want that one big win instead of multiple small to medium wins and minimized losses. Okay. Con, highest risk of any archetype, almost no floor if the projection fails. Like if they don't take off, then it's going to go back to almost zero, and they are illiquid until the narrative and the performances brings in demand. So for these new players like DeBarnsa, like Peterson, like Boozer, like Wilson, like Lenderborg, the narrative is what's carrying their market right now. The hope and the potential of what they're going to do during the season. When the performances start to come in, that's when they'll shift. If the performance meets the current narrative, it's going to continue to go up. If the performance exceeds the current narrative, it's going to go up. But if the performance doesn't meet or exceed the current narrative, then we're going to cool, and people will be like, oh, this person wasn't as good as what we expected or what everybody was saying, and that is going to dictate across into their card market. It's just what we need to be aware of here, but it's also something to be aware of across all the players and the archetypes, but it just impacts these people the most. And the thing that I find the funniest about all this, and also the most interesting, is that what we track in the dashboard is velocity, so the time to sell, and the profitability of the cards, the profit margins. The velocity decreases as we come down. So the Hall of Fame guys tend to be the most liquid, like have the biggest velocity, and the prospects have the slowest or the lowest velocity unless they're performing tremendously well. But when we look at the profit margins, it actually comes back the other way. So what I mean by that is the profit margins are lowest at the top and they're highest at the bottom of the prospects because of the potential returns there, because of the gap between where the market is and where the market could be. If the likes of AJ DeBarnsa becomes a Hall of Fame player, that's a huge gap compared to if Maxi becomes a Hall of Fame player with where their card markets are right now. Okay? And here is the signal that I promised you at the beginning of this video. 12 months ago, Cooper Flagg was a tier 5. He was a prospect archetype. Okay? He was just a name on the draft board that then got taken by the Mavs, and he hadn't yet played a single minute in the NBA. Today, he's Rookie of the Year, and his rookie cards go anywhere from $1 up to tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what one you're holding. And what really matters here wasn't the fact that he was in the prospect tier, it's that the potential was there for him to go prospect to breakout. And that is what we were buying into. So the profit came from that move between the two tiers. The profit doesn't live on whether you have a Hall of Fame player or whether you have a prospect player. The profit lives in the change between these archetypes. Okay, so everything that I do when it comes to the market research, when it comes to looking at my own dashboard, when it comes to looking at what players to buy and card designs to buy, it matters and it's built on, is this player going to change archetypes and enter a new tier at some point this season or in the future? Because if they go up, cool, that's going to bring more demand, more value and more attention to their market. And if they drop, or if someone that's breaking out fails to break out and they drop back down to a prospect, yeah, their market's going to cool. Okay, and now my actual NBA off-season buy list. I put this up on Instagram and it went nuts. 254 likes, 108 people commented to say, yes, I would like this. I am completing it as we speak. At the point of shooting and recording this video, it's like 2 days away from being sent out. So by the time you watch this, it might already be out. But if you want it, and as I've got here, I've broken it down into the player archetypes. It's going to cover all the players. It's got their current market value, their narrative, their exit catalyst that I'm looking at, the specific cards of theirs that I'm targeting and more. Just comment off season below or come across the Instagram and send me a DM with the word off season, and I will send my NBA off season buying list to you. So the one rule to all of this, a tier is not a reflection of how good a player is. It's a reflection of what their market has already priced in for that player. Okay, that top tier, the top archetype of Hall of Fame, it's already finished. But the bottom tier, that bottom archetype of prospect, has the most growth potential to it. Okay, but again, the thing to really state is that the profit isn't owning a tier, it's having players in that tier who have the potential to make the jump to the next one this season or at some point in the future. Okay, so we buy where the argument is still open about where this player is, and we look to buy into those exit catalyst events like all-star conversations, like awards for all NBA, Rookie of the Year, all defensive team, or MVPs, deep playoff runs and championships. Okay, when you're really looking at buying into a player, this is where the exit catalysts come in, and it ties with this. It's what is going to happen for this player, or what needs to happen for this player to move up an archetype and solidify themselves there, because that's when the baseline resets on their card market. Okay, now I've just shown you where the profit lives in what sort of archetypes, but there's only one way to know where the profit lives for you, and that's inside of your own numbers. It's inside of a dashboard or a spreadsheet or a tracker if you're running one. Okay, it's the easiest way to see what tiers, what player archetypes actually make you profit and move fast for you. And more importantly, what specific card designs, what sets, what parallels, what numbers, are they auto, RPA, case hits, what specific cards of those player archetypes move the fastest for you and have the most profit for you. Because when you have that data, you can then say, oh, these are the sorts of archetypes and these are the sorts of card designs that I'm going to buy into more. Because for me, they work really well. And that is exactly what the dashboard that I built for ourselves and that I'm sharing with people here does. So you can come in, you just input the card, what you bought it at, the date you bought it at, what you sold it at when you do sell it, the date that you sold it, any shipping costs or selling costs that were involved. It will automatically calculate how long it took to sell, what the profit margin was, what the profit was then, what the profit margin was, and you can input the tags for that card. So this is where the player archetype goes and the card design goes. And then what's really cool is as you start to fill this out, it gives you your top 10 fastest to sell cards and your top 10 most profitable. So I come in here and I have a look at, oh, my most profitable cards to sell were these cards and they had these tags. Cool. I know that Wemby is a superstar player. He's not elite yet, hasn't won a championship or an MVP. So he's a superstar player. Okay, who else is in that archetype? And rookies, parallels, numbered. Okay, I'm going to go look for more of those sorts of cards. So it's so simple to use. As I said, you just input these cells here and everything else auto calculates for you. If you would like a copy of this, link is in the description below. It is free. Just go there, get it. You'll be able to come here. I have this video walkthrough for you and you'll be able to get this set up and running for yourself. All you need to do is go file, make a copy, and you'll have an editable file for yourself. And if you enjoy these, so that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for being here with me, being here with us. I'm grateful for you. If you enjoy these market breakdowns and business insights specific for sports card businesses, but you want some shorter bites, then go check out our Instagram at RookieHeatAU, where we are sharing that sort of content daily and helping people to buy smarter, buy better, sell smarter, sell better, make better, simpler decisions so that they make more profit on each card that they buy in the sports card industry. And if you've subscribed to the channel, the next video is an exciting one. Okay? I'm going to show you how I determine what price and when I buy, the exact checklist. Okay? And that includes the one line I never cross, no matter how good the player looks. Okay? I'll see you on the next video.